All right, all right.
Yeah, come on. There we go. Check.
We good?
Yeah.
Thank
Where's your
God.
MAGA hat this week?
You know, I actually have a red baseball hat that doesn't have any words on it, but people look at me funny when I wear it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What? Did they do something good?
For
Well,
some,
dude.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. No, I mean, I do like what, I do think Pam Bondi is an attractive woman, so I do like that.
Mhm.
Let's see. Did he do anything else worthwhile?
Yeah. He hasn't kept his word on the Ukraine war, but ended the war in Gaza before day one.
Okay. Okay, smarty pants. Yeah. For those who don't know, today, Trump announced it, I guess, before anyone else did, didn't he? He announced it before Israel announced it.
He announced it on Truth Social. Again, if you want to be up to date in the world, if you want the cutting edge news, you got to be on Truth Social.
It's looking that way.
Yeah.
But just think about that. Neither Israel nor Hamas announced this, but Trump did. Trump announced it and took credit for it. In fact, didn't he point that out in the first 4 words or something? Like, I've been given credit for this, something like that.
Shoot, I made it the thumbnail. I made the post the thumbnail, but it was the hostages. Yeah.
One of the I think maybe there was 2 tweets, but one of them just in the first half sentence of the tweet, he made clear that he gets the credit for this, which is true from every account, by the way. And I've been following, left wing, right wing, pro-Israel, anti-Israel. Everybody agrees that Trump did this, and we'll talk about that. But how it went down, what this means, and the specific terms of the deal, which are very important to understand. So, and most people probably don't know them.
Sorry, here are the exact words. This epic all-cap ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory, capitalized, in November.
Yeah, there was another tweet where it's more specific and personal about him.
Yeah.
It's funny, like such an obvious egomaniac like Trump can still be wildly popular among people who consider themselves to be good, humble Christians. I still don't understand the popular. I mean, I guess I understand it, but I need Christians to explain to me why they're pro-Trump. Okay. So number one, there's a ceasefire agreement. According to Trump, we don't know. Israel hasn't said anything. Hamas hasn't said anything, but we assume this is true. For many days now, though, we've been moving toward an agreement, and that's been in the media in various ways. So this is not terribly surprising. But yes, so the story is, and this was actually reported in Haaretz, which is an Israeli newspaper. It's like a liberal, but still establishment newspaper, main newspaper in Israel, reported that Trump sent his special emissary to Israel, whose name is it Wyckoff? I think it's Wyckoff.
Witkoff, I think. Witkoff.
Witkoff, right? Stephen?
Yeah. Steve, yeah.
Steve Witkoff, yeah. So here's what's just getting. This is one of the many, many interesting things about the new Trump administration, and gosh, we have much to talk about with that too. But Witkoff turns out has zero experience in politics, in formal politics. He's never been a diplomat. He's never been in the diplomatic corps. He has no training in international relations. He's never been in the government. He is a big real estate mogul in New York, just like Donald Trump, but he happens to be Jewish and I guess sort of Zionist. And so Trump gave him the job. Now, it turns out, looks like anyway, that Trump really gave him the job, to go in there and tell Netanyahu to stop this war now. And that's what happened. According to Haaretz, Witkoff flew to Israel, I guess last week or recently, to tell Netanyahu to do this. And I think it was last Saturday, right? It was he told the Netanyahu's office that he was arriving on Saturday and needed to speak with the prime minister immediately that day to finish the deal, the terms of the ceasefire deal. And Netanyahu's office, this is the prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu is secular, always has been secular, told Witkoff, this is Donald Trump's emissary to Israel, sorry, he can't meet. It's Shabbat. Sorry. And Witkoff, I think, was actually like about to land in Tel Aviv. And according to Haaretz, he was salty with Netanyahu and told him, probably with curse words, oh no. What do you say? I don't care about Shabbat. I think those were the words. I don't give a, probably said something more like, I don't give a F about Shabbat. And this is from like I think a Jewish Zionist. And you better come meet with me right now. And guess what? Netanyahu did. Netanyahu like canceled his little whatever he does on Shabbat, which is probably just run the government, and ran down to the meeting room and sat there with Witkoff and finalized the deal for the ceasefire. So, number one, this is maybe the biggest lesson to learn or remember, is that the United States has always run Israel whenever it wants to. I mean, the United States government, since it began funding Israel in 1967, it began in 1967. Before that, it was the French. And before that, it was the British, you could say. Since 1967, the United States, every time it is told Israel to do something, Israel has complied. And that usually means it stops Israel from slaughtering people. In every war that Israel has been in, and in many of the minor wars it's been in, they did not stop killing until the U.S. told them to, ordered them to, and threatened to withhold shipments of arms. Henry Kissinger did this to Israel twice, and most notably in 1973, the Yom Kippur War, when they had a giant contingent of the Egyptian army completely surrounded, and were getting ready to just annihilate thousands of men. And Kissinger said, no, you can't do that. And if you do that, we will stop sending you weapons. And they called off the attack and negotiated the end of that war. And again, the Bush administration, Reagan administration, I mean, right-wing Republican administrations have told Israel to stop, and they have. All the various wars in Gaza, they've told them to stop. It goes on and on. So, and they've complied every time. Now, the thing with Biden is that he never told them to stop, as we sort of know, right? There was the one little week, I guess, when he asked them nicely to not invade Rafah, and what was it, withheld the 2,000-pound bombs for a week. We didn't send them the 2,000-pound bombs. That was their punishment. And they invaded Rafah, and then we continued sending them 2,000-pound bombs. So this tells us once again that Israel will do whatever the president tells them to. It's quite that simple, because without the United States government, Israel is toast, and everyone knows this, including the smarter Israelis. A lot of Israelis are actually delusional about this, and I've argued and debated with Israelis about this. What happens when the United States stops supporting you? I'm like, we don't need your support. We've done this all on our own since 1948. I'm like, oh, really? That's not exactly even close to what happened. They've always, from the Zionist movement in the early 20th century, when the Balfour Declaration by the United Kingdom gave them right and access to that land, all the way through to the French taking up the slack and sending them Mirage jets with which they bombed the Egyptians and the Jordanians and the Syrians to the United States after 1967, just flooding them with weapons and every conceivable kind of killing machine, and billions and billions of dollars every year in straight cash. Not to mention, and in fact, you could argue that that's the least significant aid that the U.S. has given Israel. The most significant aid the U.S. has given Israel is the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. You could even say the Vietnam War, because that was an announcement that insurgencies, anti-colonial insurgencies, will be if not defeated, they will pay a heavy price, meaning that we will kill their people. So we know now, and Trump knew this going into it, that the U.S. can determine whatever Israel does. And it's also, so that's number one lesson. That's the big meta lesson. Number two, which is to say, by the way, that means the fate of the Palestinians is in our hands. America, yours, mine, Americans. If we vote
for Donald Trump
person, well, in this case, maybe racism wins, I guess. We can do whatever we want with Israel if it's up to us. And it only took us a year and a half
voting for Donald Trump
of killing children. Yeah, you're right. I mean, yes, okay. No, and listen, don't get all uppity with me, because I'm the guy
who voted for Donald Trump.
Wow, saying months ago, didn't I? Multiple times that I thought there was a solid chance that Trump would cut a deal with Netanyahu and end the war. Just want that out there because I'm a little Trumpian. I like my credit where it is due. All right, so that's the big lesson I want everyone to take from this. And number two is that, and this is of tremendous immediate concern and importance, Trump's not so much of a Zionist, it turns out. I mean, maybe sort of fundamentally he believes in this thing, some Jewish ethno-state in the Middle East. Although I wonder if we really scratched him on this and really probed him on it, I wonder how committed he is even to the concept of it. But he's clearly not. I mean, he is unlike every Zionist I know of. Every Zionist, I don't mean Israelis, I mean people who are ideologically committed to this project of having a Jewish ethno-state there and displacing the Palestinians to make it happen. Every single solitary one of them, and I follow these people, every single one of them wants the war to continue. There has not been one call for a ceasefire among any one of those people. Not one. To this day, no matter how many children are lying in the streets with their arms and legs blown off, they have wanted this war to continue, and Trump said no. So he's not one of them. He's something else. And I'm not even sure what his exact feelings and thoughts are about Zionism and the state of Israel. I know what his son-in-law, Jared Kushner's are. He's an unreconstructed, sort of primitive idiot Zionist, but he's all in on it. And he certainly never wanted a ceasefire, I'm sure. So now, so that's good. That's good. That's a relief. That's somewhat of a relief, given his appointments, his nominations are all not just Zionists, but like kill all the Palestinians with nuclear bombs Zionists. That's what Mike Pompeo literally said. Pete Hegseth may as well have said it. Every foreign policy, Mike Waltz has pretty much said this about the Palestinians and Israel. These people are harsher toward the Palestinians than most Israelis are. Their guy, though, their boss, Donald himself, apparently not so much. You know what's number one to Donald, more important than Zionism, is himself. And this is where, the egotism really works for us, for the people. Because what he wanted, or at least for the Palestinians, what he wants, and this is the reason he cut this deal, the immediate reason, I think, right, is because he wants, and he told Bibi, apparently, that he had to get this ceasefire done by the 20th. That was the task at hand for Israel, was to make Donald Trump's inauguration as festive as possible. So it's amazing. And we don't even know what Netanyahu's gotten from this, right? I remember I was thinking for months now, I was like, what would Donald Trump give Netanyahu, though, for this?
Well,
and it may be nothing. This is my point again. We wag that tail. The tail does not wag us if we want. But I think Netanyahu may get nothing out of this, except his state will continue to receive American funding.
Well, Netanyahu really overplayed his hand throughout this whole conflict and has politically isolated himself from the rest of the world, and so he's not negotiating from a place of strength at all, like he could pretend to maybe a year and a half ago or a year ago. And so, all it took was the American people voting for Donald Trump to get competent leadership in there to actually exercise.
Just how many times did you vote for him?
Enough.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that, by the way. Yeah. So, all right. So I guess we should talk about the deal itself, because this is crucial, because this is where you're going to be singing, I'm afraid, a somewhat different tune in a week or two. I hope not, but I'm worried that you will be. So it's a 3-phase deal. The first phase is pretty remarkable, which is that this is well, I'll let the audience decide, but Hamas gives up 33 hostages, and I think there's about 100 left. So this is a third, roughly a third. These are the elderly, women, and the sick and injured, and the remaining. I think there's 2 or 3 kids left, and the kids too. In exchange for, I think it's more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israel. And maybe more importantly, although for a lot of Palestinians, that's number one, which you can imagine, it's understandable. And by the way, the Palestinians in Israeli prisons are simply resistance fighters. Some of them have killed multiple people. Those people are called serial killers in Israel, or mass murderers, but they're just fighters who have been fighting the IDF and civilians, but in the name of this resistance. It's not just that they're psychos. That's who's in the prisons, and hundreds and hundreds of them are innocent of killing anybody. And I think it's 300 are children. There's several hundred Palestinian children under the age of 18 in Israeli prisons. So many of them will get released in this deal in exchange for just 33 Israeli hostages. And most importantly I think most importantly is Israel will begin withdrawing its troops from the Gaza Strip. Begin. So, but there are Hamas demanded very clear timelines and very clear transparency and accountability, so that, well, we'll see. But so that's phase one. It's huge. I mean, that's big. Number two is Hamas releases the final hostages. Even more Palestinian prisoners are released, so it's in the thousands in exchange for roughly 100 total Israeli hostages. And the IDF completes its total withdrawal from all of the Gaza Strip. That's the current deal, and I'm hearing this from Israeli sources. So this is the deal. Phase 3 is, from what I've heard, is that it has not been at all worked out, the specifics, but it involves the reconstruction of Gaza, right? So and there's been zero agreements on what that means. None. It's just that's a promise, or I guess, or something. That's phase 3, is that there will be a decision or set of decisions about reconstructing Gaza. But nothing else has been decided about that. Now, here's the problem. Israel is famous among most people who follow this. You could say infamous for, guess what? Violating ceasefire deals, reneging on agreements. I mean, the Oslo Accord, that whole process, the whole peace process of the 90s and 2000s, I mean, that was alone just one shady backdoor stepping away from it after another. And so and this also happened over the last many months. So this is the deal, by the way, that Hamas agreed to. The current ceasefire agreement is essentially the exact same deal that Hamas agreed to multiple times over the last year. Israel changed the terms of the deal at the last minute, and Hamas had to back away. And then Israel blamed Hamas for not agreeing to ceasefire deals. Now Hamas, here's the thing about Hamas. They are Islamic fundamentalists. They are very, very serious religionists. They are very, very serious about Islam. And Islam is a religion of high propriety, just like Christianity. And actually, in terms of veracity and honesty, I mean, Hamas is pretty good. In terms of brutality towards civilians, not so much. I'd give them a low grade on that. But they don't rape women. That's as policy. They don't kill children as policy. And they're generally, they're not known for being mendacious the way that Israel is very famous for, but especially in these kinds of negotiations. So all of this is to say it's not over yet. And celebrations, I think, are premature, even though apparently I've seen them all over the Gaza Strip. There's huge celebrations in the street, and the Qassam fighters are in the street in their uniforms with their guns celebrating right now. So they've come out into the open for the first time since the war started. But I don't know. I will be skeptical that Israel will hold to this until I see it finished. Mm-hmm. They could do the first phase up till Trump's inauguration and then start fucking everyone over after that. And Trump will have less leverage, perhaps. I don't know. But so far, you are right. Yeah. So far, you are right. This is absolutely Trump's doing. Biden never even attempted this in any way. And Trump's done it before he's even in office. He did it for reasons that are not my reasons entirely. Although, Trump has shown like a visceral antagonism toward war. The first president ever in American history to ever show what I think is an authentic dislike of war, and has stated it many times, and I really do believe that. I don't think he hates war as much as, I do or Scott Horton does, but he does. And enough so that I do think that might be part of his calculus. But of course, the main calculus is, I'm getting inaugurated on January 20th. And remember Reagan freeing the hostages in Iran and helping him so much, and what a hero he was when he came into office because of that. And this will be even bigger and better because there's American hostages. There's American Israeli hostages. There's so many American Israelis. It's so strange. So many Israelis have American accents and are from Orange County. It's so weird. But of course they're native to that land, indigenous to that land. Yeah. People who look like me, whose ancestors never set foot in the Levant, but whatever. Yeah, he gets the credit. Trump's the man. Congratulations to you and MAGA. But
when
but
should
I just
we
talked
nominate
to me
him for the Nobel Peace Prize? When does he get the Peace Prize nomination?
So that's got to be on his mind too. And wouldn't that be just? Oh, and by the way, I'm saying it's possible that he will.
He deserves it. Like, he actually deserves it. Like,
not
objectively.
Wait, hold on. Not yet. Wait, what?
More so than Obama did when he won it. Like,
well,
yeah.
So does my dog. Like, what?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, come on. So yes, he is. Who wrote an article? Someone wrote an article saying that Donald Trump will, I think, predicting that Trump will get 3 Nobel prizes, peace prizes, something like that. Someone wrote an article saying this. You didn't know this?
No, I didn't see this. No.
Oh, you came up with that on your own.
I mean, it's just kind of obvious if you know.
Who was
and
that?
The war diplomatically, you probably deserve a peace prize.
It was somebody. I forget. I just heard this today. Somebody, some fairly famous or serious intellectual, just wrote an article saying Donald Trump will win 3 Nobel Peace Prizes.
Well, you know what? Maybe Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney could have cooked up a deal similar to this. Maybe.
No.
No.
See, the guy's not ideological. Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney are ideological. They're ideologically committed to a whole set of agenda items, right? That you could call the neoliberal globalist agenda, which is fine with me, something like that. They're committed to that whole thing. NATO, Israel, military bases everywhere, regime change, wars, all that stuff. Extending LGBTQ rights to Uganda. That's them. That's their thing. Trump's not about any of that stuff. He's non-ideological, and this is why he is the most unusual and useful president. Is because you can flatter him. And when you flatter him, you can get him to change world epic policies. So, cool so far. Yeah, I like it. Ukraine. So Ukraine, right? Sorry. Okay. So he could stop the war in Gaza, or he's on the precipice of stopping the war in Gaza. He's almost certainly going to stop. He already pretty much has stopped the war in Ukraine, but he almost certainly will. On that, we all agree. The war in Ukraine is over, and Trump's going to stop it.
Well,
and then what?
The deep state might have more invested in that, and I would not rule out a false flag happening that entrenches us further in there. I would encourage people to continue to pray and to do whatever you can still, but it does seem like the deep state is very invested in taking out Russia still. But I agree with you that it is a lost cause, but we are dealing with crazy people here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't want to say crazy. How about ideological people?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, people committed to a particular ideology, which, by the way, in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that's why they are that's why they're committed to this thing above, one could say, rationality. One could say above self-interest, right? If you're committed to a thing like socialism or communism or whatever it is, and
the global liberal rules-based order.
Yeah, right. You're willing to sacrifice. That is the most important thing. It's your religion. That's the most important thing to you, more than your career, more than your money, more than even your reputation, your status, more than even your health, your safety. These are people willing to take risks for a cause they truly believe in. They really believe Putin is the next Hitler, the new Hitler. And so I kind of respect that on there's no argument against it. I mean, they can lay out all the evidence for why Putin is totally not that, but you're not going to convince them. And if I believe there was a Hitler, if I believe that there was a Hitler who was actually intent on dominating the world, which even Hitler wasn't, but let's say the idealized Hitler, if he really exists in Europe, yeah, I'm down. I'd probably be for something, some kind of war with him. These people are really invested in that. And that's why they, as you say, like, they could pull something. I mean, these people blew up the main gas line between Russia and Europe. I mean, the main supply of heating fuel to Europe just to screw Putin over, and then denied it. I mean, that is still the Nord Stream pipeline explosion is still like maybe the biggest scandal of the last decade. And it's still, no one talks about it. Well, that and the origins of COVID.
Yeah.
I mean that the Pentagon, the US military, was essentially behind the creation of COVID and blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. I mean, almost for sure. I think that's true in both cases. I mean, those are scandals that are so galactic that it's just breathtaking. And yet, not many people seem to care.
Something interesting about this happening in such a timely manner. Did you notice the mainstream news media, legacy media, was going hard on Israel for human rights atrocities in Gaza for the first time this week? 60 Minutes ran a piece, and New York Times ran a piece. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Blaming the United States involvement for massive civilian deaths and estimating that civilian deaths are grossly underestimated so far.
So, yeah. No, I can think of about 3 or 4 conspiracy theories that are plausible for why this happened. But I actually have been in newsrooms like that. I have been around journalists who work at those places. I have worked for the New York Times. My guess is more likely that they could see the tea leaves, that they could see the wind blowing, I should say. Trump's in office. They know he's going to cut a deal with Netanyahu. They see the ceasefire talk happening. It's been happening for a couple of weeks now. And it's been looking like we're heading toward a ceasefire agreement for weeks now. This is not out of the blue. Lots of talk about it. Lots of people assuming this would happen. Trump saying it would happen. Him posting Jeffrey Sachs, denouncing Netanyahu, denouncing Israel, denouncing the Iraq war and blaming Israel for the Iraq war. Trump posting that on Truth Social a couple weeks ago. I mean, one message after another that Trump was going to stop this war. So if you work for the New York Times or CBS News, this guy's going to be president, and not only is he going to be president, this time he's popular and won't be attacked the way he was in the past. He'll actually get to really be president this time. And you see that it's about to happen in a week or two. Yeah. I mean, now's the time to please everybody, because you will please Trump, or at least Trump. You won't piss off Trump, because this is a great time to show how awful Israel is when Trump's about to pull the plug on their operations. You please all your entire base. Everybody, not everybody, but most people who read the Times, should take that back. Excuse me. There's probably, my guess is about, there's a significant portion of the Times readership who are Zionists, but I would guess a majority, more than 50%, have hated this war at least and want it to end. So it's a win-win for the liberal media to do this now, unless there's a better explanation, which Michael Weimer is about to give me. What do you think?
I see it following a trend. I'm not sure if it's a legitimate conspiracy, but I see it following a trend of more and more people granting legitimacy to Donald Trump as president.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so there's been two cultural developments since the election that I've noticed very distinctly. One is that, what you just said, that liberals and even lefties are just talking about Trump differently now. Even when they're criticizing him, it's not criticizing him as Hitler. It's sounding more and more like the way they criticized Reagan and Bush. And the media simply stopped talking about him as Hitler and a fascist and a racist now. It just doesn't happen anymore. And MAGA opinion I've seen in mainstream outlets again and again and again becoming mainstream. They treat these some of the ideas within MAGA the way they treated normal ideas among Republicans in the past. They don't like the immigration stuff, but they report on it in different ways. They report on it in non-hysterical ways. They report on it in the ways they would have, again, under Reagan or Bush. The other thing I've noticed, and this has been just hilarious, slightly scary, but mostly funny. And I don't know, did you see the Jasmine Crockett, Nancy Mace exchange?
Yeah, but I don't want to grant any legitimacy to women in politics.
Well, so first of all, after their performance, the 19th Amendment is toast.
Yeah,
I don't see women's suffrage surviving this.
Or Mazie Hirono or Kristen Gillibrand or
Mazie Hirono. I mean, yeah. I wouldn't hire that woman for anything. I mean, she is like one of the dumbest people you'll ever see. Even among like Hollywood celebrities, she would be dumb. She's the senator from Hawaii, a senator from Hawaii. It's just, wow. Yeah, the 19th Amendment has been really just crushed by the performances of female Congress people in the last week or two. But in this hilarious hearing, which was, what was it about? It wasn't even like about Trump's nominees. It was about some stupid civil rights nonsense bill.
Was it trans in sports? Was it the trans in sports?
Not
thing
even.
that Mike Johnson was trying to do?
No. It was Jasmine Crockett wanting. I didn't even know about this. There's some national, some agency or something, some federal made-up agency for civil rights. It's like yet another that I've never heard of. Right? I'm not talking about the EEOC. I'm not talking about the Civil Rights Act. I'm not talking about that. Some weird little agency they probably created in 2020, 2021, when everybody had to be anti-racist, that got some funding, and it got cut by the Republicans, and she wants to reinstitute it, and she's giving this little stupid speech. She has fake eyelashes. I have such ambivalent feelings about this. Jasmine Crockett is something else. She's the first anybody to bring like actual hood culture into Congress, and does so very aggressively and proudly. And I'm of two minds about it. But it's fascinating to watch. I mean, what she says in politics is almost all complete nonsense. And as with this, but she's talking about the need, how civil rights is so fundamental to America, and how, the Republicans are evil for not supporting civil rights, and civil rights and freedom is so important. And we need to have a civil rights agency here and there and everywhere because Martin Luther King said so, and whatever. So she gives it a dumb speech, and then and then Nancy Mace just immediately launches into her. Nancy Mace is MAGA. She's a MAGA congressperson from North Carolina, I think. And so Nancy Mace says her argument is, the Democrats care about civil rights, huh? Well, what about the civil rights of women? The rights of women to not have to change their clothes in a dressing room where a man is. And goes on this rant about trans men raping women in bathrooms across America. This epidemic of trans rape of women, which hasn't started yet. By the way, there's not been one recorded rape of a biological woman by a trans woman. But okay, I get it. I'm not even against. I'm fine with banning trans women from women's bathrooms. Fine, but like, she is mad about this and goes on. So that's fine, I suppose. Quite hysterical. It's very much like woke right discourse. It reminds me of like hysterical left-wing discourse about things like rape, and murder and racism, just in a right-wing way. But then in the course of this, Nancy Mace says that trans women are perverts. She goes on to the sexually perverted and mentally deranged, and then says trannies, calls them trannies, and then in Congress calls them chicks with dicks. This is in a congressional hearing. It's on YouTube. You can go watch it. I'm not mad about this. I just is an amazing transformation of American culture that we're witnessing. Calls them chicks with dicks. Says, I don't give a shit about what you're saying. See, she says shit in a congressional hearing as a congressperson. And then challenges Jasmine Crockett to a fight outside. Says, we can take this outside. Okay, so my renegade history of the United States person says, hell yeah, let's go. My thesis is proven correct yet again, which is that the culture of the streets, the culture of the gutter, the culture of the id, the culture of civilization's discontents is always bubbling upward. So, the styles of prostitutes in the 1910s became the styles of the first ladies in their official White House portraits in the 1930s and 40s and 50s and 60s. The red dress, Nancy Reagan's whole thing, which every first lady has had to wear as the symbol of the first lady, of course, was worn only by prostitutes 100 years ago. And here we see it again. Cursing, fighting, threatening, fighting, violence, like among women. This is what you would find at a dive bar at 2 a.m. in any American city. And I applaud it. And a lot of good things have come out of that. Like American freedom. So I'm seeing a whole lot of freedom being exercised by American elites who are identified with MAGA. And I'm seeing MAGA since the election feeling itself and feeling much less restrained by liberal norms of propriety, right? Which we all live under. Even this podcast, you and I are we're speaking in a particular way within, even though you and I break a lot of those norms, you're always kind of expected. There's a set of norms around how to speak publicly and how to be publicly, what you can and cannot say, how to speak, how to look even. You see those norms just getting punctured right and left from the right and the left. Nancy Mace, MAGA, Jasmine Crockett, black liberal Democrat from Houston, I think, who wears fake eyelashes. Oh, Nancy Mace has fake tits. Nancy Mace I think she's talked about it. This is known. Nancy Mace got breast implants a few years ago and proudly shows them off in the halls of Congress. And just look it up, Google her. You'll see pictures of Nancy Mace in a tight dress and bikini and the rest. There's, what is it, 2 other MAGA congresswomen now who have been bikini models. In fact, one of them was it OnlyFans or done even from Florida? There's 2 of them who are like professional hotties. Like professional, like basically sex workers. And this is the Christian conservative wing of the Republican Party now. But my point is, renegade history of the United States is borne out once again. The culture of the streets always works its way up to the top because people at the top want to be free. And so now, the other thing I say in renegade history is that on page 5, I say, however, as lovely as all that is, people being free and saying what they want to say and being free about their bodies and wearing fake eyelashes and getting fake boobs if they want to. And apparently Nancy Mace is also really into sex. I think she's said some things about that. Love it. Wonderful. Let's go. Let's have these fights. Let's have it out. Get rid of the repression, the bourgeois repression, the bourgeois liberal repression and restraints. Let's let it out. Let's hear what people really are. They're human beings. I want to know. Let's hear you speak your truth, as it were. Your desires to fight and fuck, as Freud said. These are the desires of the id that civilization is always trying to repress. Nancy Mace and Jasmine Crockett had this moment where, and there have been a few moments like this, by the way, and Marjorie Taylor Greene also was in this. She's also part of this. They have a moment where they're like, no, we're the discontents. Fuck civilization. We're got to fight each other. And we're also into fucking and looking good and looking hot. Like no congresswoman ever before. Trust me. They all look like Puritan New England school marms. Every single congresswoman before this era looked just like that and acted like that. So that's really lovely and wonderful. And I'm glad the thesis of my book is being, proven once again. But I also say on page 5 of this book that if everybody is a renegade, if the government is made up of renegades, I don't want to live there because the garbage won't be picked up. We'll be invaded by hordes of marauders. Who knows? Crime will be unenforced. There will be pillaging and raping and murder and etc. It'll be like Haiti. So that is actually my fear about the Trump era that we're about to enter, this is truly the Trump era, by the way. When he was elected president, the entire world was set against him and wouldn't let him govern in any way. 3/4 of the people who worked in his staff and his cabinet were enemies of his, it turned out. So that doesn't even count, right? He couldn't do ever what he wanted to do in any way. Now he can. He's really governing. He's already governing and sure will for 4 years. I'm worried. I'm really thrilled and excited again to see renegade impulses being let loose again on the left and the right. This era has given license to the left. People like Jasmine Crockett who talk shit now and use words like shit. I never once heard a swear word in Congress. I've been following American politics my entire life until now.
Joe Biden used the N-word a couple times.
Doesn't count.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that really, some people might think it's trivial, but it's not. It's really a big deal. And so I want to see what's going to happen now because I'm a little nervous. In other words, the wheels haven't come off of American government, but they're getting wobbly. They're getting a little, I've never seen the wheels wobbly before. Now that's, again, it's a little exciting and a little scary. I don't know where this is going to go. If the Nancy Maces and the Marjorie Taylor Greens, we haven't even talked about Lauren Boebert, who, got busted for making out with her boyfriend in a movie theater recently. I mean, what's up with these Christian conservative women?
Well, Trumpism is first and foremost. Trumpism and voting for Donald Trump is first and foremost a celebration of the body, and that's.
How tall is he again? 6'12" or something?
6'3", 285 pounds. He's built like a football player.
He's taller. No. He's more like 6'6" or 6'7". He's like super tall.
Yeah.
He's a giant man. He's not like regular tall. And he's got that pear-shaped body now. It's quite imposing.
Yeah.
Celebration of the body. Okay. Yeah. Well, fine. This is, again, why do Christians like this guy? I need that answer. You tell me. You're both. You like Trump and you're a Christian. How do you explain this?
I don't demand my leaders to be perfect. I don't demand.
I know why. No, we know why. It's because you're Catholic.
He's an instrument of peace.
Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa taught us everything we know about Catholics. Catholic girls.
Yeah.
All the Catholic boys.
Yeah. Vinny Caliuta.
And like, I dated exclusively Catholic girls when I started out. And so, yes, it's true. You guys, you drink wine, you diddle kids, or at least the priests do. All the priests are gay.
Unfortunately, the leadership of the Vatican has been infiltrated. I've been told that a bunch of communists and nihilists infiltrated the Vatican in the early 20th century and got rid of the teachings on homosexuality. But, as I've like re-entered a study of Christianity, it's been nothing but humbling. And I really don't know anything, really, honestly. But I do know that Christians tend to not make a religion out of their politics and not demand that unless they're evangelicals. But Catholics are often one-issue voters, maybe on abortion. That happens a lot. But people who have a religious mindset don't make the state their religion, so they don't pretend that their politicians are perfect and that they can see their politicians as human beings and can be much more rational about the exchange that is happening from their politicians, what they demand of their politicians. They don't worship their politicians as religious figures like secular people do to Barack Obama or Kamala Harris, for example. You'll never see granted, there is a cult of personality around Trump, yes, but there is certainly a through line of, I do not worship the state. I want somebody to come in and use the state for my benefit, use the state to promote my values, use the state as a tool. And you'll often see Trump not compared to Jesus, but you'll see him compared to King David, somebody who was deeply, deeply morally flawed, but helped his people politically.
Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
Yes. And
so I have read that, and I think most people read that as sort of more material and mundane, sort of like what, in other words, don't participate in actual politics, formal politics, and let Caesar take your taxes.
Yeah. And the second half is render unto God that which is God's.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like, to me, you are now illuminating this once again in my mind. Like, I think it probably is like a way deeper point there which is about separating one's psyche, one's personality from the state. So that the state is no longer romanticized, idealized, right? Or spiritualized. Think about how liberals in particular, but some conservatives too, think about the state. It's God for them. This will solve everything. Liberals and leftists, rightly or wrongly, believe that the state can and will solve most of the major social problems that we have and bring in happiness. I mean, we will no longer be poor, right? We will no longer need healthcare. We'll get help. Everybody will get good healthcare. Everybody will have free psychotherapy. Everybody will have whatever education they want for free. No one will ever go hungry. No one will ever have to worry about being hungry or unhoused or any of it. This is happiness. The state will deliver happiness. I believe this for most of my life, or half of my life, the first half of my life. But I don't think I'm saying anything controversial here. I think any liberal or leftist would agree with me enthusiastically. This is what I've been hearing from them my entire life. The state will give us these things which are necessary for nothing less than human happiness. Now, that sounds like God to me, right? And which sounds to me like, and I know this because I was one and I had this psyche, my identity to a large extent in that way was merged with the state, because I was like, this is my God. This is what's going to make everything better, including my own life. I will never have to worry about getting a job again. I'll never have to worry about being poor or hungry again. I'll never have to worry about medical care again. I can get a PhD if I want to. Everything's good. There will be no war, they believe. There will be no racism. Remember, the state will also end racism.
Mm-hmm.
God, we know how horrible that is. The state ended slavery. So why can't it end all these other bad things and make us all happy? And so many people, and not just liberals, but there are conservatives who think this way about the state. It will deliver them to the promised land of conservative MAGA. And this is a conversation I want MAGA to be having right now. How exactly do you feel about the American nation state? How much do you want the American nation state to do? How much power do you want it to have over you and over other people? What I'm seeing here in most of MAGA, though, is a separation. Lovely, thank God, separation of their own psyche from the nation state. They're not, and this is what I think what you're getting at, right? They're not merging their identities with the state in the way that most liberals do.
Yeah, and I've heard many conservative Christians who don't like Trump's temperament basically express, at least he's not openly hostile to me, my values, and my way of life, like the Democrats are. The Democrats might be, have more of a moral, upstanding character. The Obama family, even though Obama is a deeply closeted homosexual, but the Obama family might have a outward appearance of a stronger nuclear family than Donald Trump, who has 3 wives and does whatever he wants and might have gone to Epstein's Island. But I don't care, because Donald Trump is not going to force me to bake the cake for the gay wedding. Donald Trump is not going to trans my child. He's not going to, he doesn't hate me, doesn't hate my way of life, doesn't insult me, believes in my interests.
That's a Christian libertarian take.
Yes, but I mean,
that's probably you.
Yeah, I've heard it expressed by never Trumpers who eventually, neoconservatives who are strong evangelicals who really hate Trump's brashness, but at the end of the day like him for policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. Let's talk about women.
Okay. Well,
you hate them.
Yeah.
I have real questions about them. But what do you want to talk about something else besides our hatred of women? What?
Well, I think when we were talking about the cultural shifts here, what the
Mhm.
cabinet confirmation hearings, especially Hegseth's hearings,
That's where I was going.
bring about.
I was going to Hegseth. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple ways to look at this, but I think you can include it with the what was it, the New Yorker piece about Neil Gaiman, and that we're seeing a last-ditch effort to reinstate Me Too as Trump takes power again. The thing that the psyop that took away a lot of Trump's power his first term is coming back. The dreaded, well, the institutional attack on the male libido.
Wow. It's a perennial war.
Yeah.
Not just an attack. It's a perennial war against the male libido. Yes. Civilization, again, back to Freud's thesis. This is Civilization and Its Discontents, which we're going to teach that course pretty soon in the Great Books series at the Academy. But I mean, as I've said before, Renegade History is basically a very large elaboration on Freud's thesis about civilization and its discontents. I forgot where I was going with that, but anyway, sorry, we were talking about
the
women
attack on the male libido. Yeah,
male libido, right?
Well,
which is right.
Yeah.
The Hegseth thing is becoming, in most part, an attack on the male libido. The male libido, the problem with it for civilization is that it's anarchic, right? This is the time when men, again, I'm generalizing, but the generalization is accurate. Men tend to be, and you could say by training, and I'm fine with that. Masculinity, the training of masculinity trains you to be disciplined, stoic, restrained, allowing only one emotion to show, which is anger, right? All that stuff. And women are allowed to be emotional. But our sex drive, the libido, is notoriously a free agent and is the thing that can escape through the cracks of all the repression, all the masculine strength and discipline that we impose upon ourselves, so that we can be firefighters and police officers and soldiers and coal miners and all the rest of it, right?
Sorry, are you telling me that civilization is held up by men working shit jobs and taking their frustrations out on the underserved housewives of the world?
Oh, well, I mean, I haven't seen that video yet, but I think, yes, I know what you're talking about. No, I mean, the argument has always been, and this is actually what feminists have always missed, is that restraints on men's sexuality has always been central in puritanical drives, anti-sex drives, because men's sexuality is the most dangerous thing, because it's the most anarchic, and men are physically powerful. It's not, and I'm not just talking about rape, but men, again, when their libido is set off, we know this, I don't think I have to explain, tend to lose self-control, right?
Okay.
Thereby becoming more anarchic. And so that's why men's sexuality needs to be attacked, needs to be constrained, needs to be controlled. And the controls, the repression on women's sexuality, which is much more famous and which I've written about much more, often, usually, in fact, is more directed at men. So, for instance, Sharia law. The reason it is stated in Islam that we need to cover the women is to stop men from losing control of themselves, which seems completely rational to me. I mean, I'm not for it, but it's rational. It makes sense to me. So I think that's what's going on here. I think that feminism in the last 50 or so years has taken the role of civilization in attempting to constrain. And by the way, feminism has not just constrained men's sexuality. We also know what they've done to women. They've shamed every woman who's shown skin for the last 50 years. Feminism began in large part in the 1960s as a reaction against what? Donald Trump, the Miss America pageant, before Trump owned it. That was the very first feminist, second wave feminist public protest in 1969, Atlantic City, the Miss America pageant. Feminists, the very first second wave feminists did a whole like picket march protest in the Miss America pageant. They didn't want women being shown as sex objects, right? So again, I mean, this is why sex and sexuality is always central to any political question. You just have to look for it, what's actually going on. But that's what's going on. Feminists took the role of civilization, oddly enough, in the last 50 years. They're the real conservatives. They're the ones who are renewing or trying to maintain or sustain the Victorian and Puritan traditions in America of constraining everyone's sexuality and covering up, literally covering up their bodies, as in the Victorian era, very famously. Feminists, as we know, since the 1960s, have been most upset about women showing skin. But men's sexuality is the most dangerous part, because when women show skin, men lose control, and it's often talked about as rapists. That's the trope, right? We're all sort of imminent rapists, potential rapists because of this. But it's also because we don't want to work when we want to have sex. We don't want to serve in the army when we want to have sex. We don't, we're not disciplined. We're not working our way through math problems to create a new tech app to revolutionize the world. Again, things that men do and the masculine sort of spirit do. Sex is always a problem. It's always a solvent against civilization. It loosens the wheels. It loosens the wheels of the wagon. And that's, I think, what is happening even in the Hegseth nomination hearings right now. He's a good-looking guy who managed to, and how do you not just tip your cap? I mean, he got a married woman who was on vacation in a hotel with her 2 kids and her husband to come have sex with him down the hall in his hotel room. And then she ended up like accusing him falsely of rape or whatever. But like, what a target. Like, this is who's known, he's known for his drinking and carousing and hanging out in strip clubs and all that stuff. And so much of these hearings have been not about like, what I would ask, like, well, if the president came to you and said, there's this country that has weapons of mass destruction, please prepare your men for war, would you ask questions? No one asked that of him. No one asked like what his policies would be in terms of foreign policy. Now, I know the defense secretary has less power than state or the presidency, of course, but they have a say. And Donald Rumsfeld was right in the room making the decisions about the Iraq War. Donald Rumsfeld was one of the key decision makers in that period. And so Hegseth could be that. I would be asking him things like that. How weird. The Secretary of Defense should be asked about foreign policy. But anyway, no, they wanted to ask about his sexual history. That's what most of it was about. And it was about him losing control, because they talked about his drinking too.
Yeah.
Will you pledge not to drink while you were Secretary of Defense? They just hammered him on that one, because you lose control. There was a story told about him drinking at a strip club and wanting to dance with the strippers because he was so drunk. Well, if you're out of control, you can't be the Secretary of Defense. You can't even be a good American citizen. And I mean that. Freud was right about that. There is always a conflict between civilization and its discontents. Pete Hegseth is, like many of us, especially a lot of men, I think, very much a man of civilization and very much a discontent. The guy likes to drink and fuck, but he also likes protecting America. And I think those are both really genuine and authentic. I don't think he's making stuff up in either case. I don't think he's acting. I think many of us carry around very contradictory impulses in that way. Many of us are very, very extremely socially responsible. And if we see some emergency, some crisis, someone in danger, we run to it. There are many, many men who run to the crisis, run to the danger, but will also go to a strip club and get drunk and want to lap dance or whatever. I mean, you can have those two impulses in you strongly at the same time, and that's him. And that is Freud's conflict occurring in one person. But it happens in most of us, most people who are socially responsible, even as radicals. Like, I don't need to care about this stuff, but I do, because I feel some sort of sense of responsibility, weirdly, for the world and other people, those of us who are political. But, you know, we also have very, very selfish, self-interested desires and motives that also run through us. So it's a constant conflict. It's just a question of which impulse will win at any given moment, right? As to how civilization is going to go and how our lives will go. So it's been fascinating to watch the Hegseth nomination process with that lens, or through that lens. And I think what is going on there and why this is happening comes down to that. It's that fight. It's the most fundamental fight that goes on, but it goes on all the time in politics. Just no one sees it and no one's aware of it because they're worried about more surface level stuff. But that's what it is. He represents on a macro scale a threat to civilization itself because of his uncontrolled and uncontrollable male libido. And the feminists are the ones who are stepping in to fix that, as they did in the social purity movement in the early 20th century, which was against prostitution and against drinking. Same thing. During the suffrage movement that got them the 19th Amendment, got them the vote. In the 1920s, that was the argument. They said, this was the suffragist argument. We are mothers of the home. That means we control the home. We bring discipline and order to the home. Give us political power. We will do the same thing to the state, to the nation, to the country that we do in the home. Wasn't a bad argument. In fact, it turned out to be the winning argument. That was the argument made by the suffrage organizations in the 1910s that got them that amendment. And you see it playing out today, where the feminists are the ones who will bring order. They're not just defending women from male predations, which they talk about all the time. They're the ones who bring order to society, not the men. It's quite an interesting dynamic.
And their other critique of, well, to go back a little further, the first time he was reprimanded or he had his orders rescinded for the inauguration of Biden was because of his tattoo. It was a disciplinary action of his body because of how he chose to ornament his body. And because he decided to have something professing his faith on his body, that labeled him an uncontrollable extremist that is not fit to serve in the military.
Right.
Yeah.
And these women, if they were approached by Pete Hegseth at that hotel in Monterey in 2017, and they'd had a couple of beers, they would go fuck him. And we know this. And that's what drives them crazy. I mean, yeah.
I believe in Hegseth's testimony, he said it doesn't count if it's on vacation, which but the other critique of the screaming harpies in the Senate was that to have the most effective, lethal killing warfighters fighting force, you need women at every level of you need women on the front line. You need trans people on the front line. You need just, I mean, we know this, right? Like,
no,
this is how Genghis Khan conquered the steppe, right? This is how
I've put up with the racism now for 2 years, but I will not stand for the sexism.
Isn't the first chapter in Art of War by Sun Tzu that make sure you have a proportionate amount of women?
I hope people watching this understand that I'm not endorsing my partner in any way. In fact, this is a debate show. You guys know that, right? This is like
Crossfire.
Okay, number one. Okay. Let me tell you about my friend April. Okay. In college, I recruited her when we were forming our softball league. She was the first player I recruited to play on my team, and I put her at shortstop, the most important position. And you know what April did first time she got up to the plate? This is a woman, okay, with a vagina. Okay, this is not a trans person. She hit a ball so fucking hard. It was a line drive that went over the left fielder's head and didn't stop, didn't even descend until it crossed the fence. She made diving catches going left and right. She had the best arm on the team. She was by far the best softball player in the entire league, man or woman, okay?
We've all seen Bad News Bears, that I think.
Dyke. Don't forget the dykes. You're forgetting the dykes. Let Pete, you and Pete and all you MAGA people, Do not forget the dykes. Let me remind you of Brooke, my friend. Not remind you. Tell you about my friend Brooke, who was at my most recent MMA gym in Oregon. Brooke has second or third best left hook I've ever caught. I mean, she punches so goddamn hard and has tremendous defense, great technique. She listen to this. She came home to she had a roommate like 10 years ago, some loser guy. She was just letting him live there to be nice to him. And he was an Army vet and he had an AR-15, and she came home, he was drunk, and they got into a fight about paying the rent. He wasn't paying the rent. He pulled the AR-15 on her, pointed it in her face, in her living room. Brooke, within 2 minutes, she disarmed him, put him in a chokehold, and made him unconscious, and held him there until the cops arrived. So I think Brooke and April would be just fine in combat.
Right.
So can you not the dykes, man?
No, you've convinced me, Thad. You've convinced me. I believe now all women should be conscripted and sent to fight in Ukraine as soon as possible.
No. Just not lesbians, because I've known Hollywood lesbians too. Lipstick lesbians. No. The bull dykes, they need to be in the army. Mm-hmm. Come on. Young M.A., you know Young M.A., the rapper? Are you not aware? She played on her high school football team as a linebacker. Mm-hmm. You want to keep her out of this? Sexism makes you dumb, man. Okay. Bigotry. It warps the brain. No, well, of course he's right. But let's talk about wait.
Well, okay. I was just more so talking about how I brought the topic because what you were saying about the feminists being the new conservatives, or being the conservatives who always have been, that central to their thesis is we need women to be the disciplined killing machines that run the empire. And in his testimony, Hegseth didn't necessarily deny that. He was all for diversity, equity, inclusion. He just wanted high standards. And he did not own up to any of his sexist comments that he might have made in his drunken past.
I'm just thinking about Brooke invading Iraq right now. Mm-hmm. That would be amazing. No, she would be, I mean, I know she would be a far better soldier than 95% of the men I've known. So let's get it. Okay. So that little carve out about lesbians, bull dykes. You got to, if you're going to have a military, you got to let them in, because they're really, truly men in that way. No. Yes. The bigger thing that's going on is feminism here. Once again, showing itself to be the oddest of all beasts. So feminism, and this is first wave, second wave, third wave, you, of course, claim to hold women's interests most dearly. You are the protector of women. Men are a bunch of rapists. Feminism protects women. That's what you are if you're a feminist. You really care about women, their health, their well-being, their happiness, their freedom. And so now, and this is, by the way, a second wave feminism. This is not, I don't think third wave, meaning like post 1990s feminism is into this, like meaning millennials. My generation and the boomers, the ones who invented the goddamn thing, they're the ones who are pushing this idea that, God, it's Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
How dare you, Pete Hegseth, you fornicator, you adulterer, you drunk. She's from New England, isn't she? Yeah, Elizabeth Warren is just perfect example. Mm-hmm. How dare you say? And this is how she put it too. I mean, it was she read his statement saying this like as if that was self-condemnatory. I'm like, yeah. How dare you say that women should never be in combat, should never serve in combat? How dare, as if, and she never made an argument. She just read his statements saying this and let them stand on their own. Like, well, what's your point, Liz? Like, what's the problem there? Are you just insulted? Is that the issue here? Which it is, by the way. Mm-hmm. For bourgeois women like Elizabeth Warren, it's just an insult and they can't tolerate that.
Yeah. They want there to be women fighting on the front lines just to appease their ego, it's just so they can imagine themselves as capable of doing anything, just for their own.
Do you want to fight on the front lines? Here's another question. This comes up every couple of years, led by Hillary Clinton and her supporters. We need a draft that includes women. We need to draft women too. The sexism, which it is sexist. Of course it's sexist. We don't draft women and we don't put them into combat. So feminism is now currently fighting to have women drafted into combat so that they too can go kill and die in Iraq and Vietnam. Because that will truly, and it will make them equal. Mm. And then they'll feel better.
Yeah, I think it's fair to note that young people have been rejecting feminism en masse pretty heartily. And I think this is a perfect encapsulation as to why. What
a vision! Yeah. What a vision of women's liberation! Mm-hmm. Remember when it used to be called women's liberation when I was a kid? Now it's G.I. Jane is the vision. You get to be Demi Moore, except way less sexy, doing lots of pull-ups on the beach in Paris Island. Oh, and then you get to go die for a war that we find out shortly afterward was totally unnecessary, which every American war has been, by the way. Every American war, ladies, has been totally unnecessary for our own survival and well-being. Completely, we have never fought a war ever abroad, ever, that was necessary for the protection of the United States, for us living here. Never, not one of them. So that's what you're going to go die for. But at least you'll feel good. Or am I wondering if the women who are calling for women getting drafted and being in combat are not the women who will actually be drafted and go into combat? Because these are the women who were born into privileged homes in New York City and San Francisco, and they went to prep schools, and then they went to the Ivy League, and now they run a think tank. And they're 45 years old. They're never going to get drafted. They're never going to be in combat, nor will their daughters, because their daughters also go to Wellesley. Maybe it's about class. Maybe the working class women who end up in the army getting shipped off to Iraq and getting burned to death as... And it's a long story.
Well,
but yeah,
I do think also on this, the Democrats are overplaying their hand, because if you were to play this footage and put it in a time machine and bring it back to the time when the United States actually won their wars, and to show it to any civilian or military person from World War II or before, it would be completely absurd, scoffed at, like beyond parody. It would be beyond the pale of imagination that this would be being discussed, women on the front lines, and that our senators would be women demanding that women be on the front lines. It would be, they would call you, I don't know what they'd call you. But also, if you broadcast this today to China or Russia or any place with a lethal fighting force that is composed entirely of men, it shows you that,
I mean,
the old order of the liberals, who cared about the wokeness and the ineffective military, their day is gone. Their day is over. They've been rejected at the ballot box, and now you've got a young, hot, ripped guy who takes no prisoners and will restore the lethality of the fighting force to the United States. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, okay. So I mean, my little thing about the lesbians was not insignificant, or I mean, it's more important than people might be realizing. I mean, so I want, though, I mean, I'm okay with that, what you just said, but I want you and Pete Hegseth again to grant me a little bit of the gender constructivism here, that there are women who are biological females who can be just as badass or almost as badass or good enough as most men.
I think I can,
as fighters.
I can follow Hegseth's line and say, if you just keep the standards objective and they can,
So yes, you would allow you would allow a person with a vagina to be in the Marines if they can pass all the tests and show that they're can do all the. Yeah.
I have heard nightmare stories though of how one woman in an all-male barrack can destroy the cohesion of the units, and I would put that into consideration as well.
You can have separate barracks then, I guess. Although does
That
messes up the right? That messes up the unity of the troops, which is important. Yeah, it's true. Oh damn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are distracting. Women, even bull dykes can be distracting.
And yeah.
So what a quandary.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's people now have like 2 or 3 different, I think, devastating critiques of all the discourse around this right now.
Mm-hmm.
One from the postmodern left, which is me, pointing out the absurd contradictions in feminism demanding this, and sort of the bleak authoritarianism of feminism too. This is what the vision is to get you all in fighting and dying in Iraq, which is what, if they had gotten their way 30 years ago, that's what would have happened. We would have had lots and lots of women dying in Iraq, in the Iraq War. Is that what you guys are down with? But then on the other side, from your point, there's a equally devastating, I think, conservative or right-wing, whatever you want to call it, argument about the absurdity of even considering having women who we know, biological females who overwhelmingly, not all, but overwhelmingly are less strong and less able to do the work required of a fighting force, of an effective fighting force, into the military. The whole thing makes no sense from top to bottom. So,
do you want to comment at all? I did want to tie it in. I think just reiterate the Neil Gaiman piece that this is.
Seems the return of Me Too, the last gasp of Me Too,
last gasp of Me Too, or the liberal intelligentsia trying to reclaim power in some way, and how this feminism is also at its core not only an attack on the male body, but an attack on art, and that any attack on deviant sexuality is going to be an attack on art, and art cannot function, I think, broadly without some stopgaps to allow individuals who have deviant sexual behaviors.
Well, so Neil Gaiman, and it's funny, it's amazing how many like bourgeois liberal women. I know a college professor who specializes in him. Love Neil Gaiman. I mean, it's amazing. Liberal middle class white women, in particular, it seems to me. I've never read him. I don't know, but they just go on about his brilliance and they love him. So according to the New York Magazine article, right? What's the deal? His ex-wife.
I have no idea what the allegations are. Again, never stare directly into the psyop. Never.
I do all the time.
Yeah, okay.
I do all the time. I always stare into the sun. It's a thing of mine. When I see the sun, I just go right. I'm like, you learn a lot, but it's also painful. Anyway, the allegations, I believe, are, I didn't read the article, but I've read lots of like descriptions of it. His ex-wife, whose name is Palmer, I believe, last name is Palmer, I think, would go out and tell women that they would get paid if they would come to their house, which is in some very remote part of England in the countryside. And I guess they would say, have sex with Neil Gaiman. Get money, you get have sex with Neil Gaiman. Lo and behold, amazingly, many women were willing to do this. There was no coercion alleged, no physical coercion of any kind, no threats of any kind made. Just, we'll give you money and you're going to have sex with Neil Gaiman in our beautiful country estate. And amazingly, a lot of women said yes. Got in the car with his ex-wife. And the psychology of the ex-wife, I need to know about. I need to understand that. I can't relate, but I'd love to know. Anyway, this is the allegation. According to New York Magazine, these women were driven by his wife to the house. They were taken to the house. He got them and then did all kinds of BDSM dom stuff to them. I'm not sure about the specifics. Honestly, I didn't get that far. Stuff that probably is somewhere in the BDSM category. And then they left the house and continued their lives. So I don't know. I'm waiting. And I forgot to mention, every one of them was an adult. Mostly in their 20s, but some in their 30s, So, I mean, the insult to women, once again, the anti-feminism of feminism, the idea that these women didn't have agency, didn't make decisions, that what happened to them was all the result of their own decisions, that they were never physically coerced or in any way coerced to do these things, that they wanted to do all of these things and always had the choice to not do them and to leave. The idea that they didn't have any of this agency is, once again, what feminists have done my entire life, is to infantilize women, to treat them like children who don't have agency often, treats them like not just children, like young children, like toddlers who really have no agency, right? I mean, even toddlers have agency, but they are, physically coerced to such a degree that their agency is microscopic compared to what adults have. It's to deny that they have agency. It's to deny that these women had the ability to choose, that they were choosing, that they should be allowed to choose whether or not to take this weird woman's offer to go have sex with Neil Gaiman for money. Yes, it's stupid. If I had a daughter, I would say, don't do that. Please don't do that. But that's what we have to allow adults in our society to have, that decision, that choice, don't we? Or maybe conservatives and feminists agree on this, right? Because you all want trad wives, don't you? Who just do it whatever we say and have no agency. Isn't that the alt-right fantasy, is to have the woman in the wheat field with 3 toddlers in tow and the heaving breasts and the peasant skirt, a peasant blouse.
Go on.
Right. I know. Yeah. And she's always ready for you. She's always willing to do whatever you want. She'll take whatever command you give her. She's the Stepford trad wife. So maybe you have the same, and that's the best woman. So maybe that's your view. Maybe the alt-right, the neo-right, whatever you want to call it, have the same view of women as feminists do, that they're just children. Damn. I think I got you. No, I nailed you. No, that's it. We're done. Bye. Next week, topics will be what?
Oh, well, I was going to say. Don't look directly into the PSYOP. Don't. Yeah. And even, I don't know. It's like, as somebody who still listens to R. Kelly, you have to understand that often
it's the Christian thing to do.
Yeah. You have to understand that separating the art from the artist is a false dichotomy, and often the artist's own perversion that has victimized others is the exact thing that he is exhibiting in his art. And art cannot exist if that doesn't happen in some way. I believe in morality and I believe in legality and all that, but sensationally going after artists and exposing their sex lives salaciously instead of appreciating their art, will destroy art itself.
It will destroy civilization.
Yeah, which will destroy civilization. Once art goes, then goes civilization. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Totally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next week, we will discuss why it is that conservatives are a bunch of perverted freaks and liberals are all Puritans. And yet the conservatives are always accusing the liberals of being perverted sex freaks. This will be next week's show. Tune in then. For now, you have a final thought?
Conservatives believe in forgiveness, and
do they?
Yeah.
Is that after the death penalty is administered or before?
Yeah, sometimes the death penalty is the only form of penance that is possible. But yeah,
good one. Good one. All right. So tomorrow night, Unregistered Live, number 4, the new Unregistered returns, and tomorrow we will be revealing the next course at the Unregistered Academy. We're not going to say what it is now, but tune in tomorrow because we will be having that course on sale and ready to go for signups tomorrow at the time of the show at 7 o'clock Eastern time on this channel at Unregistered Live. Very exciting course that I've been wanting to teach for a long, long time, and it's extremely timely. So tune in tomorrow. We'll do a little history lesson that will be, I think people will find very useful and important and interesting and helpful in understanding today's news too. So that's the news there. And then, oh yeah, there it is, unregisteredacademy.com. The new course is not there yet. It'll be on there tomorrow night. But again, we have lots of other courses that I'm sure you would love to take. And then if you want to support this show, which of course you do, I mean, think about how many times you've watched this show. I'm speaking to you, the audience, and loved it and learned from it and laughed from it and thought that Michael should get much more airtime. Give us $5 a month, man. Go to patreon.com/unregistered. And then the best part of this, you get to come to the after show. The after show after Unreported, which is right now. We're going to a Zoom meeting with all the patrons and only patrons of this show, of this channel. We hang out for a long time after every Wednesday night. It's the highlight of my week. And if you sign up now, you can go to our Patreon and see that link for the Zoom meeting and come hang out with us and talk to us, or not, or just watch. You can just come and be anonymous and not show your face and just listen and watch. Either way, it's an institution around here. We've been doing this for I think 6 years now, and I love it. And you get that with just a measly $5 a month. And if you don't want to do that, support the damn show because baby needs shoes. So everybody, thank you, Michael. You're awesome. Love the headphones. Audio issues have been fixed.
Yeah,
we're doing great now.
That's the one thing Kamala Harris got right is wired headphones.
The one thing.
Yeah,
she's sexy, man. Leave her alone.
No, I think she's great. I think she's an incredible aunt to her lovely nieces.
She's got family values.
Yeah.
She never wanted to have her own children, but she has family values.
She would be great in daytime television. Like, honestly, like give her like her on the Drew Barrymore show, like just that all day.
Ooh.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, that the laugh will go over really. Yeah, no, it'd be good to hear that laugh for an hour.
You know, when she doesn't have political ambitions, you see like a real joy in her heart. Like like all the cooking videos she has and all the videos of her playing with her nieces, like she seems like a good, wonderful human being when she's not trying to destroy the world.
Yo, I'm going to be doing a lifestyle show in about 5 years on the H&G network. Is that what it's called? Which is going to be me making pottery and Kamala Harris showing us her recent recipes.
Yeah.
Watch. Things can change. And she and I are the same age. We're both from Berkeley. That's where we're headed. We had a political thing because you have to do that when you're from Berkeley. But then we realize we hate it. It makes us unhappy. What we really want to do is have like the next Chez Panisse restaurant.
You guys should move to Montreal. That's like
no. We're here. We're already here. We're good. All right, man. Thank you, dude. I'll see you soon.
Yeah. Peace. I want to play us out with a little clip. We'll see if the TikTok ban goes through, but a lot of the youth is making a mass exodus to a Chinese app called
Red Book.
Yeah.
The little red book. They finally won. The commies finally won. Congratulations, Chairman Mao.
Yep. So
Peace.
thanks to the TikTok ban stopping Chinese spyware, this is where our youth are headed.
Awesome.
See ya.
我要恭喜美国政府引起 TikTok 导演。我是要红书上和网友找到了共同点，发现我有很多中国朋友找了很多些，这些工会没有你们，这一切都不可能实现。我爱中华人民共和国。